All right, buckle up, because what you're about to hear is a story that will send shivers down your spine. The story begins in a cursed mountain jungle in Indonesia. There, Alia and her friends stumbled upon a small child, but they made a grave mistake by bringing this child back with them. From the moment they brought the child home, terrifying and strange events started occurring all around them. Alongside these ominous happenings, two of Alia's close friends who had gone to the jungle that day died within just 2 days. The lingering question remained, what exactly was this small child? Was it a Jinn's offspring, or did a demon reside within it? And what was the way to escape its grasp? To find out, we have to dive into this entire story titled Taboo. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into this thrilling Indonesian horror story. Our story opens with a scene inside a mountain cave in Indonesia. A young man named Diaz ventured deep into this dark mountain cave. As he moved forward alone inside the cave, we could see a girl standing right behind him, though he didn't notice her, and continued to push ahead. Just then, a little girl appeared, walking in front of him. However, before Diaz could see her, his friend Alia placed a hand on his shoulder. Diaz, in essence, had a profound interest in all things supernatural. He absolutely loved spooky items. Alia was always by his side in these strange obsessions, yet as Diaz moved forward, Alia suddenly stopped him, telling him they should return home. Diaz accepted her words without question, and as the two of them were leaving, we saw Alia, who turned and looked back to see a small child spirit standing there, or perhaps a demon, something Alia had sensed. The scene then shifted to the next morning, where Diaz was showing his friends the video he had recorded in the cave. According to him, he had captured a demon on his video camera the previous night. However, his friends saw nothing of the sort in the video, which led them to tease him and ask where his next hunt would be. This prompted Diaz to provoke them in return. He claimed he was going camping in a mountain jungle 8 hours away. He challenged his friends, saying if they were brave enough, they could join him. Alia was a little startled by this. Meanwhile, all his friends were quite eager for this camping trip, especially Rayan. Adis, however, was a bit scared and asked Alia if she would go too. Diaz then began to plead with Alia. It was clear from Rayan's expression that he liked Alia, and perhaps he didn't appreciate Alia's close relationship with Diaz. Everyone eventually agreed to go camping in that terrifying jungle. Diaz was in charge of packing all the supplies. Rayan, on the other hand, would bring his car, which would make the camping trip much easier for them. They planned to leave for this camping trip a week later. That day, as Diaz walked Alia home, she asked him if they really should go to that jungle. She had heard many frightening stories about the mountain jungle before, but for Diaz, all of this was just an adventure, and he was trying to explain this to Alia. At that moment, Alia's mother saw them from the window. When Diaz tried to speak to her, she didn't respond and went inside. Alia then told Diaz that her mother was in a bad mood and he should go home now. Diaz primarily lived with his grandmother. His grandmother was making some kind of amulet, but when Diaz arrived, she quickly hid it. As Diaz approached her, she gave him a knitted cap as a gift, which she had made herself. Diaz was very happy to receive it and went to his room. At that moment, we saw Diaz's grandmother take out the amulet and put it around her neck. Meanwhile, Diaz went to his room and put up a news article about the mountain on his camping board. From this, we learned that many people had gone missing on this mountain before. It was a deserted jungle. The following week, on Friday evening, everyone gathered to prepare for the camping trip. All the necessary supplies had already been loaded into the car. Soon after, Ryan arrived with Addis. Ryan was the only one who could drive, so Diaz set the map and handed it to him. Everyone was now ready to depart. Just then, their school's security guard, who had been keeping their belongings, warned them to be careful. He stated that the place was rumored to be inhabited by Jinns or demons, and they should be careful not to disturb them in any way. After setting off, Diaz also explained to them what they shouldn't do there. First, he instructed no promises should be made. They shouldn't throw things around or take anything from there. And finally, they shouldn't shout or make too much noise. We also got the impression that Mahir liked Sia, but Sia didn't pay much attention to him. There was a connection between Alia and Diaz. Additionally, Ryan liked Alia. Now, let's see where their story goes. So, Ryan drove all night long, eventually reaching the destination Diaz had marked. However, that particular spot didn't seem right for their camping, so when he turned around to call Diaz, Alia, startled by the noise, snuggled closer to Diaz and lay down. This sight did not please Ryan at all. Since they had arrived, he decided to find a better spot for the car and then wake everyone up for camping. As he drove forward with this thought, he suddenly caught sight of someone in the adjacent jungle. Distracted by this, he didn't even notice when he broke through the gate of a forbidden area and entered it. This implied that demons or jinns resided there, making the area off-limits, completely unaware of this forbidden zone. Ryan drove them right into the middle of the place. Everyone got up and started setting up their respective camps. We observed that Diaz took great care of Alia, a fact Ryan noticed. However, Diaz also knew that Ryan liked Alia, and he even warned Ryan about it. It implied that Diaz must have also liked Alia. Meanwhile, Mahir was still trying to flirt with Sia. Just then, Diaz arrived and told him to gather a few more sticks as they needed more. Mahir agreed. We could tell Mahir was a little scared, but ignoring his fear, he went to collect some sticks. As he was coming back, we saw a terrifying hand appear. The next morning, as Saya woke up and stepped out of her tent, she was frightened by the surroundings, so she called for Alia, asking her to help her go to the restroom. Just then, Addis also woke up. Now the three of them went into the jungle to relieve themselves. Shah went to one side, and as she was relieving herself, we saw a snake. Addis also moved forward, but Alia stood there as if sensing something about the surrounding environment, a tense, eerie feeling. At that moment, she found something like a flower, which she picked up. As soon as Sia came over, Alia quickly hid it. Shia then asked her about Addis. Hearing that Addis had gone ahead, Shia and Alia went to look for him. However, Alia wasn't at all focused on finding Addis. Her attention was entirely on that object. As a result, she separated from Sia, and after walking some distance, she tripped and fell over a tree trunk. Hearing her fall, Sia started moving towards her. At that moment, Alia noticed that right next to where she had fallen was a hut. In front of it sat a terrifying-looking woman with one white eye. Just then, Sia arrived, and suddenly, as if someone pulled her leg, she fell down. But when Sia looked at her feet, she saw no one there. Meanwhile, the terrifying woman, leaving her monstrous creatures behind, approached Sia. This sight unnerved Alia greatly. The woman touched Sia's face with her horrifying hand. Shia was so frightened by this that she couldn't comprehend what to do. Alia somehow managed to drag her away from there. Both of them were extremely scared and, in their panic, ran back to the camp. Diaz and Ryan were both surprised to see them. Here, Alia started yelling at Diaz, telling him she had forbidden him from coming here. She reminded him that he had promised her he wouldn't enter the forbidden area. So why had he brought them here? Diaz was astonished by this, as he had marked the map to stay outside the forbidden zone. When asked about this, Ryan explained that the map had given a signal that they had arrived. However, since Ryan didn't know about the forbidden area, he had simply followed the road ahead. Diaz then asked him why he hadn't woken him up. Ryan replied that he had tried. As an argument began between them, Alia stopped them. Just then, Mahir emerged from inside. That's when they remembered Addis. Everyone was very worried about Addis's whereabouts. Suddenly, Addis called out from behind. Seeing him safe and sound, Sia hugged him. Alia then told Addis that they needed to leave this place immediately. Diaz agreed with her. Everyone quickly gathered their belongings and left the forbidden area. The terrifying woman watched them leave in this manner. She began to chant some spell, and immediately the car stopped. To Diaz and the others' surprise, even after being off all night, the engine was so hot that smoke was coming out of it. Now they needed water to cool down the engine. They had passed a waterfall nearby, and Diaz suggested they could walk there to get water and also take a bath and eat their food. Mahir loved the idea, and everyone got excited. As soon as they reached the waterfall, the three boys went into the water. Sia and Addis went to take pictures. Alia was sitting alone, and seeing her by herself, Diaz approached her. Alia warned Diaz not to stay in the water for too long, or he would catch a cold. It was clear that Alia and Diaz liked each other, which did not please Ryan at all. But he didn't say anything. Instead, he sat in a corner, looking sad and eating his food. Just then, Alia came to him. Startled by Alia's sudden appearance, he became nervous, and his food fell from his hand. Alia had simply come to get water from him. They were having a lot of fun there. A significant amount of time passed as they enjoyed themselves. Diaz reassured Alia that they would leave quickly after eating. Just then, he noticed Mahir getting back into the water. He went to stop him. At that moment, a spoon fell from Alia's hand. As she bent down to pick it up, Alia noticed someone walking through the jungle. She became very alarmed and called out to Diaz, telling him they had to leave immediately. They couldn't wait another minute. It was already afternoon, and by the time they gathered everything and prepared to leave, evening had fallen. Now, reaching the car, everyone was trying to cool down the engine with water. Alia repeatedly urged Diaz to leave quickly. Diaz told her to calm down, stating he knew Alia had many bad memories associated with this place, implying she had been here before. Rayan also noticed their conversation. After the engine cooled down, the car started. Everyone was happy to see it. But as soon as the car started, a terrifying event unfolded. Suddenly, all the doors locked themselves. It seemed as if someone inside was controlling everything, yet they were all outside. As they tried to look inside to see if anyone was there, a terrifying hand suddenly appeared near the window. Everyone was startled by this and began to run away. But while everyone else fled, Diaz returned because he had a strong interest in such supernatural matters. He had come back to record a video on his phone. Right in front of him, the car window rolled down on its own. Even after this, Diaz went forward to see what was inside. Suddenly, some terrifying force grabbed him. Meanwhile, while escaping, Alia noticed that Diaz wasn't with them, so she turned and ran back. The others, seeing this, quickly followed her. As they reached the car door opened on its own. Bravely, Alia went forward and checked inside the car, but found Diaz nowhere. She became extremely worried about Diaz. She felt that if they found that terrifying woman, they would find Diaz. So everyone searched until they reached the location where Alia had seen the woman, which was the old woman's hut. But there was nothing there, neither her hut nor the old woman. There were only a few cats. Alia tried to convince everyone that she had seen the old woman there that morning. They couldn't figure out where to look for Diaz. Just then, a small boy suddenly appeared in front of them. Seeing this small child deep within the mountain jungle, Ryan approached him. Alia also went forward. She told Ryan to show the boy Diaz's picture and ask him, but the boy didn't respond to Ryan's words. Seeing this, Alia then communicated with the boy using gestures. This time, the boy understood and began to lead them to Diaz. They started following the boy. After walking a short distance, they saw Diaz on a rock, convulsing. His bones seemed to be bending on their own, and occasionally he would float upwards. Everyone rushed to him and tried to calm him down. However, they couldn't calm Diaz at all. Both of his eyes had turned completely white, but he became calm when the little boy appeared in front of him. After this, they quickly started to leave with Diaz. However, after a short distance, Diaz began to convulse again because he had moved away from the little boy. The boy came in front of him again, and Diaz became calm. This led them to believe that this little boy was keeping Diaz away from the evil force, so Alia pleaded with everyone to take the little boy with them, and despite their reluctance, everyone agreed to her. However, while in the car, despite Alia repeatedly asking him, the boy wouldn't sit in the seat. The next morning, they arrived in the city. Getting out of the car, the others began discussing how they couldn't understand Alia's decision at all. Why had Alia brought this little boy from the jungle here? No one could comprehend it. Moreover, everyone was worried that Diaz's behavior was still not normal. After dropping off the other three, Ryan took Alia and Diaz to their homes. They first went to Diaz's house. Alia told the child that if he wanted, he could stay at her house with her. However, the boy simply followed Diaz out of the car. Not only that, he always followed Diaz. After coming inside, when Diaz's grandmother asked about this, Alia told her that they had gone to that terrifying jungle. Hearing the name of the jungle, the grandmother became extremely angry. When she questioned Diaz about it, he didn't answer and went to his room, with the boy following him. As Ryan went to give them their bags, Diaz's grandmother asked Alia when they had gone to that jungle. At that moment, Alia's mother was repeatedly calling her phone, but Alia didn't answer. She didn't have time to answer the grandmother. Instead, she immediately left with Ryan to go home. After arriving home, Ryan expressed his concerns to Alia. He felt that they had made a mistake by bringing the child. It was possible that the child's family was looking for him, or it was even possible that this child was not human at all. However, Alia didn't feel that way since Diaz was sick. Ryan promised to pick them up for school tomorrow. Alia agreed, but also asked him to pick up Diaz. Then she went inside. As soon as she entered, her mother became extremely angry with her because throughout the trip, Alia hadn't answered any of her mother's calls or even replied to her messages. While discussing this further, her mother called her irresponsible, just like Alia's father, which Alia didn't like, and she retreated to her room. She took the small, flower-like object she had found in the jungle and attached it to the neck of a teddy bear in her room, and we realized it was essentially the locket from that teddy bear's neck. She then took out a box and pulled out a family photo. In the photo were Alia, her father, and her brother, whose name was Ali. We also saw Alia's father, who was looking at photos from their last day, which they had taken after going to that jungle. Yes, when Alia and Ali were children, they had gone for a picnic in that jungle. Ali couldn't speak and he had gone missing in that very jungle. The most terrifying part was that after so many years, Alia had brought back a child who looked exactly like Ali and couldn't speak. It was becoming clear that things were heading towards something truly terrifying. At that moment, Alia's father gave her good news. His book was about to be published soon. The book was written about that terrifying jungle. Alia immediately called her father, happy, and congratulated him. Just then, Alia's mother entered the room and became furious upon seeing her talking to her father. There was also a childhood picture of Ali there. Alia's mother never wanted any memory of Ali to come before her because she blamed her husband, Alia's father, for Ali's disappearance. This was also why they had divorced. Alia explicitly told her that she would not erase her brother's memory from her mind. Saying this, she placed her brother's picture on the bedside table and then began to cry, remembering the night Ali had gone missing in that jungle. We saw that the terrifying old woman had taken Ali. Anyway, now we see Diaz's house, where the boy who looked exactly like Ali was. There, as Diaz's grandmother was preparing food, she heard the whispered sounds of some chant, as if someone was incanting. Suddenly, everything began to shake. Diaz's grandmother was startled and went to Diaz's room. There, she saw the boy in a terrifying form, standing near Diaz's head and chanting. He looked at the grandmother, and instantly the door closed. The grandmother became very frightened and immediately drove off to meet someone named Saman. Saman, performing some tantric rituals, said that they had been waiting for years. Finally, someone had opened the door for them. Diaz's grandmother then exclaimed, "Alia!" The scene changed, and we saw the next morning's events. After picking up Alia, Ryan had gone to get Diaz. However, Diaz brought the little boy with him, as his grandmother wasn't home. The most surprising thing was that Alia didn't object at all. In fact, she had brought clothes for the little boy. Although shoes and clothes he didn't want to change, so Alia just put a coat on him and brought him into the car. Ryan was not at all happy with this, but he couldn't say anything to Alia's face. Upon reaching school, he kept the guard busy, taking advantage of which Diaz and Alia brought the child into the school through the back door. They met Sia and Addis in front of the school canteen. Addis was very angry to see the little boy brought there, but ignoring his protest, Diaz took him away. A woman named Saru worked in this canteen, and Diaz and Alia requested her to keep the boy there, calling him Alia's brother. Saru agreed. After that, they all went to class. During lunchtime, the canteen became very crowded. As Saru was serving everyone food, her gaze suddenly fell upon a mirror. There was a crack exactly where the little boy should have been seen in the mirror, and the little boy was not visible there. Saru was quite surprised by this, so she went to the child and asked what he was doing sitting there. Suddenly, the child turned towards her with a terrifying appearance. His eyes had turned completely white, and he was eating a raw mouse. As soon as Saru saw this, something happened to her, and a Jinn possessed her. When a boy tried to video record the child, a Jinn also possessed him. Not only that, many other children present there began to be possessed by Jinns. Hearing the screams and commotion, Diaz and his friends rushed there. Alia saw the little boy standing in a corner with white eyes. She quickly went to him and began to secretly lead him out. Since everyone would be caught if the truth about the boy came out, all 6 of them secretly left the school with him. By then, ambulances had arrived at the school. They managed to secretly get into Rayhan's car, and the security guard, seeing them discreetly leaving, understood everything. After driving for a short distance, they stopped the car, and everyone got out, leaving the boy inside the car. Here, they all voted on who wanted to leave the little boy. Back in the jungle, Diaz and Alia did not want to, as this surprised Mahir. He told them that if they truly wanted to help him, they should turn him over to the police, who would surely help his family find him. The little boy inside the car could hear all of Mahir's words, and he did not like Mahir's suggestion of involving the police at all. As a result, that night, when Mahir went alone to an ATM to withdraw money, the little boy appeared there. As Mahir looked, no one was there. When he finished withdrawing money and was leaving, he saw Diaz walking forcefully somewhere. Mahir called out to him and followed him until he reached the roof of a building. There he kept calling Diaz and stood in a corner of the roof. Suddenly Diaz appeared behind him. Seeing his terrifying form, Mahir became extremely frightened, slipped, and fell from the roof. This resulted in Mahir's death. That morning, before going to school, at the breakfast table, Alia became very emotional upon hearing this news. All their friends went together to see Mahir's body. Everyone there was emotional, especially Addis, because Addis and Mahir were best friends. Addis had always helped Mahir try to win Sia over. He started blaming Alia for Mahir's death. He stated that Alia and Diaz were refusing to acknowledge anything from the beginning, and if they still wouldn't go to the police, Addis would go alone. Saying this, Addis left and Sia followed him. Meanwhile, that day, Diaz's grandmother was working outside the house. Suddenly, she heard a whispering sound and peered through the window. The little boy inside was whispering something. As the grandmother moved away, the boy appeared at the window. On the other hand, Addis was going to meet his uncle, who was a police officer, and Addis wanted to ask him for help. He also told Ryan about this on the phone. But suddenly he saw Diaz on the road. He quickly told the driver to stop the car. He got out of the car to follow Diaz. Just then, another car suddenly appeared and caused an accident. Addis died in a fatal accident. After Addis's death, Sia was utterly heartbroken, so she came to Alia's house and weeping, said she didn't want to die. She also felt that the jungle and that child were responsible for everything. She showed a selfie she had taken in the jungle on her phone, where the old woman was standing behind her. Now, Alia went to get water for Sia. At that moment, Shah noticed Alia's childhood picture on the bedside table, where Ali was also present. As soon as Shah saw this picture, she understood everything. Why Alia had been so desperate to bring that child that day. When Alia returned to the room, Sia confronted her about it, telling her that her brother had died in childhood, and even if this child looked exactly like him, it wasn't her brother. Alia then insisted that her brother hadn't died. He had only gone missing in that jungle. Just then, Alia's mother, Annie, came in. She had overheard their conversation and now knew they had been to that jungle. In a fit of rage, she called Alia's father, Zohan. Zohan, upon talking with Annie, immediately understood that the time had come. Saying this, he took a small-sized Quran Sharif and left. Meanwhile, we saw Diaz, in front of whom stood Ali in his terrifying form. Diaz was also completely possessed, and Diaz's grandmother was in immense pain from their dual chanting. She was convulsing as if she couldn't bear it. Meanwhile, alongside Zohan, Rayan also arrived at Alia's house. There, Alia saw her father and ran to embrace him, and then she handed her father the locket from the doll she had found in the jungle. She also informed him about finding Ali. Hearing this, her mother became angry again. Rayan then informed Zohan that the child was not normal at all. Abnormal events were occurring wherever the child went, and 2 of their friends had died in 2 consecutive days. Annie told Zohan to take responsibility for all of this. They couldn't save their son, so at least save their daughter. Zohan then said that the pain of losing Ali was just as profound for him as it was for Annie. He realized that they had accidentally freed an area where Jinns were confined, which meant they now had to go and fix everything. So he set off with the 3 of them to pick up Diaz. The exterior of Diaz's house looked as if no one had lived there for many years. Diaz wasn't answering his phone either. When Alia tried to open the main door, Zohan stopped her. He began to recite the kalima, Islamic declaration of faith, Afaran, and immediately the door opened by itself. A gust of wind emerged and they saw roots growing inside the house. The entire house seemed to have turned into a jungle. It was said that wherever a Banaspati Jin goes, the environment becomes like this. Zohan told the 3 of them to split up and go inside to look for Diaz. He would keep an eye on the outside. Upon entering, as Sia went in one direction, a rolling chair there suddenly started to move. Startled, she ran off in another direction. Meanwhile, Rayan was trying to look through the window, pulling back the curtains. Suddenly, Zohan appeared in front of him, startling him. Alia, on the other hand, opened a door in one room and saw Diaz, who was not normal at all. So Alia ran to him and embraced him, and he collapsed onto the ground. Alia and Sia couldn't manage to normalize him. Meanwhile, Rayan spotted Diaz's grandmother, who was sitting in a corner, covering her ears. On the other hand, we saw Zohan in the backyard of the house, where he found Ali in his terrifying form under a large tree. Seeing his child after so many years, he became extremely emotional. However, he didn't give up. He approached Ali, continuously reciting prayers. Due to these prayers, Ali was in immense pain. He was convulsing. Zohan went to him, embraced him, and continued reciting prayers while weeping. Ali thrashed and screamed, which made Zohan's heart ache. Meanwhile, Rayan brought Diaz's grandmother out, and Alia and Sia brought Diaz out. They were trying to get Diaz into the car when Diaz suddenly pushed Alia away. In the blink of an eye, he vanished from there. Rayan put the grandmother in the car and began searching for Diaz, but he was nowhere to be found. Sia then honked the car's horn because Zohan had told them to honk once they reached the car. The moment Zohan's attention was diverted, Ali vanished from his lap again, just as he had disappeared in that jungle many years ago. Now, they set off for that jungle because they knew that was the only way to cure Diaz. On the way, Diaz's grandmother revealed her secret to them. Essentially, many years ago, Diaz's ancestors had confined Jinns in that specific spot in the jungle. She was the last descendant of his lineage because Diaz's father and grandfather had already died due to the curse of that Jinn. This was why Diaz's grandmother always tried to keep him away from this jungle. Zohan explained that this was why the Jinns had targeted Diaz. Their sole purpose was to take revenge on Diaz's lineage. His grandmother then declared that she would never let this happen. She would save Diaz and set everything right. Meanwhile, at that time, we saw Annie at home looking at Ali's picture and remembering all the beautiful moments she had spent with him. Since Ali couldn't speak or hear, he would often make sounds by hitting his hands on the table. Annie would then go to him and they would play hide and seek. When Ali would hide behind the curtains, Annie would find him and they would celebrate the moment joyfully. Zohan would capture all of this on camera. As she was watching this, the same kind of sound Ali used to make suddenly echoed on the table, which startled Annie. Just then, the sound occurred again, and the curtain moved as if someone was hiding behind it. Bravely, she went to the curtain, and as she pulled it back, she was stunned, for there was Ali, whom she embraced. Finding her lost child after so many years, she seemed to have gone mad. She didn't even realize that this wasn't Ali. She went to her room and started playing with him, even using his favorite car. We understood how much she loved Ali even after he was gone. She had kept his room exactly the same way. Meanwhile, as Rayan's car entered the special part of that jungle, Diaz's grandmother saw the Jinns and realized that her battle with the old Jinn was about to begin again. So Zohan told his daughter and Sia to recite prayers more frequently. As they drove, they saw the old Jinn all around. Rayan stopped the car exactly where they had arrived earlier. Getting out of the car, Zohan first greeted the Jinns and then began searching for Diaz throughout the jungle. Diaz was on the same rock where he had been found after his disappearance, floating in the air. Seeing his condition, his grandmother said that a terrifying Jinn was preparing to enter him, and that's why this was happening. Zohan then told Alia to recite prayers. As soon as Alia began to pray, Diaz started convulsing. Meanwhile, at home, Ali began to behave abnormally, which surprised Annie. Diaz fell to the ground. Alia rushed to him. At that moment, Diaz's grandmother saw the old Jinn and began to follow her. Diaz, on the other hand, was still under the influence of the Jinn. Meanwhile, to calm Ali, Annie went to get him some water. Upon returning with the water, she saw Ali under the blanket. He stood up, and it was revealed that this was not Ali, but the old Jinn. Annie was terribly frightened by this sight. Meanwhile, Zohan was trying to exorcise the Jinn from inside Diaz. Just then, another Jinn emerged from under the ground and began to drag Sia away by her leg. Rayan chased after her to save her. Alia was unsure which way to go. She wanted to go save Shah, but just then, a Jinn appeared in front of her and tied her to a tree. Meanwhile, the Jinn behind Shah had dragged her halfway underground. When Rayan tried to save her, many Jinns emerged from all around and began to attack him as well. Meanwhile, the Jinn was also attacking Annie at home, leaving Annie quite startled as the old Jinns surrounded her. On the other hand, a long-haired Jinn climbed down from a tree towards Alia. Everyone, Annie, Sia, Rayan, Alia, began to recite prayers together. As a result, the Jinns vanished from everyone. Meanwhile, Zohan also managed to cast out the Jinn from Diaz through Ruqya. Just then, he heard Alia's scream, who was still tied to the tree. Zohan freed her, and at this very opportunity, the most terrifying Jinn of this jungle entered Diaz. As a result, he was now completely under the Jinn's influence. Meanwhile, his grandmother was seen, who had come in front of the Jinn that had killed her husband and son. She told the Jinn that this time she would not let it succeed. She would not let any harm come to Diaz. On one side, Zohan again started performing Ruqya on Diaz, while on the other side, Diaz's grandmother took the locket from her neck and held that amulet against the Jinn's head. At one point, the Jinn plunged its claws into Diaz's grandmother's throat and slit it. Meanwhile, Zohan had already exorcised the Jinn from Diaz through Ruqya. Alia rushed to him, and it was clear that Diaz had returned to complete normalcy. Just then, Diaz's grandmother's scream was heard, which made Diaz run frantically in that direction. Alia and Zohan rushed after him. There they saw Diaz's grandmother taking her last breath. With the terrifying Jinn standing in front of her, Zohan moved towards this Jinn, for which he had brought that small Quran Sharif. He began to loudly recite a special verse from it, causing the Jinn to thrash about. Its body caught fire, thrashing, and engulfed in flames, it crashed into a tree, and in this way, it burned to ashes in moments. Meanwhile, in her final moments, Diaz's grandmother held Alia's hand, telling her to take care of Diaz and never leave him. After that, she died. At this time, Rayyan and Sia also arrived there. On the other hand, ever since seeing Ali, Annie's heart had been burning. She realized she hadn't properly said goodbye to Ali. So she performed prayers to bid Ali a final farewell. During the salutation, she saw Ali on both sides of her. And then, in her supplication, she wished for Ali's peace. As a result, Ali took leave from his mother and departed. Meanwhile, as they were driving out of the special area of that jungle, Alia saw Ali near the forbidden area sign. Seeing his smiling face, Alia began to cry. Zohan also looked back, seeing this, but he saw no one there. Perhaps Ali had appeared to Alia to say a final goodbye because she was the only one who had never forgotten Ali and had never accepted his death. The scene now shifted to Diaz's house the next day, where everyone had gathered for the peace of Diaz's grandmother's soul. One by one, everyone left, but before leaving, Zohan told Rayyan to take care of Alia, because he too somewhere had understood that Rayyan liked Alia. Thinking that Alia's father liked Rayyan, Rayyan here became quite happy after Zohan said goodbye to Alia and left. Diaz, Alia, Rayyan, and Sia remained in the house. The three of them were primarily there to help Diaz, so they got busy cleaning and tidying everything up. At that moment, Diaz approached Alia and told her he was very tired and wanted to rest a bit. When Alia offered to go with him, he refused, saying he wanted to be alone for a while. Alia told him she would be right there and to call her if he needed anything. After that, Diaz went to his room. Just then, we saw Saman, the person Diaz's grandmother had gone to see. Suddenly, all the objects around him began to shake, and he realized that an ominous event was about to occur. Simultaneously, the sink next to Rayyan started shaking, and the table in front of Alia also began to shake. They couldn't understand what was happening. Rayyan approached the sink, and suddenly a terrifying hand appeared. At the same time, objects around Alia started falling. As a result, both of them screamed and rushed to the middle room, only to be stunned. In a moment, the house was covered in roots, transforming into a jungle. Alia saw a terrifying Jinn holding Sia. As Alia went to free her, two more terrifying Jinns approached her. Meanwhile, a dwarf Jinn had attacked Rayyan, and all of this had begun with Diaz being possessed by that Jinn. In other words, that Jinn had returned again. Being a Banaspati Jin, the entire place had turned into a jungle. And with this terrifying scene, today's story comes to an end here. We hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, please don't forget to like and comment. Also, if you're new to our channel, please subscribe. And to get updates on all our videos, join our channel. Now, thank you so much for watching this video.